Is it only me? Or? And first also to say that, yes, we'll present the status of our new products, sea ice surface temperature. I still hear echo, but I can bear with this. But I'll give also the status of our and the evolution of our global SST product. So I'm a little bit covering both polar and global region. Okay, so here is agenda. I'll give the just brief overview of our current operational SST product, then start with the evolutions on the SST and IST products, then present also some ongoing validation activities using reference EC2 data and also preparation for level 3C data, and also present also what we are now doing pre-operational processing of both IST and SST on our BKR cloud environment, and then finally some summary and outlook of the operational deployment. So in short, current status that we are SLSTR SST is endorsed as a SST reference instrument since 2019. On the right side, you see all the changes that we implemented through the beginning of the mission, through some reprocessing activities and ongoing preparation for the new deployments. What is important to say that we are meeting the SST we are meeting requirements on the SST uncertainty. We have a threshold of 0.3 as part of the requirement, and the goal is 0.01 Kelvin. So we are compliant on this. Even for the dual view, we are between 0.1 and 0.2 Kelvin. On the left side, you see the time series for the full mission. Now, next on the changes and evolutions that we implemented, we call it collection 4. The main evolution is on the sea surface temperature depth. So we are adding the new variable. It's following ESA SST-CCI project, where we use new variable name and keep the same one sea surface temperature as a scheme. It's estimated at 20 centimeters depth using FKC, fair contact placement model. It combines skin effect and diurnal variability model with input from using inputs from ECNWF operational fluxes. On the right side, you see also the difference between skin and depth for some particular day. Next one is introducing full nadir view, full nadir grid. So now we are splitting between dual and nadir. In the current operational product, we have combined nadir and dual over the full swath. Now we are splitting there two files now, two GRIS compliant files, and dual is used for reference usage, and nadir it's actually new product, so it's for now indicated for qualitative usage. And here is example also of the new safe format and safe file that contains two files. Next one is on the cloud mask clear sky improvement. So basically, it's an improvement of the Bayesian in the coastal regions. Its activity was led by University of Reading, and Balgin et al. Did quite nice work basically, and introduced the new Bayesian classifier using the subpixel in channel 3, so 0.8. And instead of current local standard deviation in the channel 8, 10.8 micrometers. So this is improving significantly over the optical active coastal waters, and we are still doing some fine-tune improvements for the nadir view only. But this required improvement in the preprocessor, so for the visible and spear channels to infrared, and also for the lens CMask using distance to land. Next, uncertainties. This is also new variables inside the products. So we provide total standard uncertainty, both for the skin and for the depth. And then we also provide components. I think John mentioned yesterday. So basically, it's not one uncertainty, it's actually uncertainties, and we provide uncorrelated or random, locally correlated, correlated, systematic, and depth adjustment. And then we suggest to use them for the all activities. Here is example of the difference between, now this is collection 3 for the sea surface temperature and covering both A and B, daytime. And comparing now, you see basically this is quality 5 over the one full day. And this is example of the nadir view, quality 5 for the same day. So you see the improvement. Of course, this is improvement in nadir only. So this is because now it's comparing with nadir. When we compare with this is again collection 3 with both nadir and dual, and this is dual SST. So we don't have big difference, but you see the difference in the optically active water. So I showed the next example, where this is the example for yellow Bohai Sea, where you see the quite significant part of the image was completely masked. And so this is again operational collection. And when we now with the new version, we see the quite nice coverage and increased number of good pixels. And this is nadir only, so this is extending part of the swath. Next example is over optically active waters in Baltic Sea and the Gulf of Bothnia. So you see also this is the RGB or true color image. Here is a current operational processor, and you see a lot of things are masked, and this is new one. So basically, we see quite a significant improvement also in different regions. This is nadir view. So we are what I mentioned. We still have some cloud leakage. So we are working on this to fine tuning the cloud mask. So this is in progress. Next one is on the IST. So we are introducing completely new product. So sea surface temperature. It's a new product type. It's SL2 IST. It's combined with high latitude SST. So it's using WST from the high latitude. It's processed only over the 50 degrees poleward, so both hemispheres, and includes also, you see below, also IST a marginalized zone and two different algorithms for the both dual and nadir only view. So the algorithm was developed within the project with DMI and METNO, and it's using PPS cloud mask, so it's a naive Bayesian cloud mask, it's also implemented and fine-tuned also within our projects. And we also provide uncertainty estimates similar to what's presented before for the SST. Here is one example of Baffin Bay. So you see the RGB true color image, and then example of the sea surface temperature product, and you see the quite nice covering and cleared part of the area where is the masking, and it's clear sky both over the sea and the sea ice. Another example here is from Greenland. So it was just picked up actually the last week. So this is over Greenland Sea, and you see also the nice coverage between and nice cloud clear screening between for this image. Of course, there is still it's challenging areas, so there are still improvements to be done, but for now it works quite nice. Current part, next part is on ongoing validation activities. So what we implemented is quite extensive set of validation activities covering all our instruments and EUMETSAT, and also preparing for the future ones. What is important that basically with SLSTR, because it's treated as a reference sensor, we are going deep to the level 0 monitoring, to level 1, covering level 2 and producing level 3s. So what we include, basically it's matchups against different reference data sets, but also cross comparison against different level 3 and level 4 satellite products. This is all part of our Start from Mars project, Copernicus project, with our project partners, Noveltis, DMI, METNO, Meta France, University of Reading, and Infirmera. yeah, if you want to take a look for the details on the tools that we implement and also some figures that I showed, this is all done through the you can check on the poster. Next, so for the SST in situ validation, so we are implementing the complete MDB, and this is our validation basically baseline using full MMDB from the beginning of the mission until now, including level 1, including level 2, and then we implemented also feral contact Clayson model for adjustment from depth basically to time difference and to skin. And here it looks like the comparison skin to depth, where you see the, of course, offset, you see the time difference based on the in situ measurements, and then when we adjust it, you see the offset is completely removed, and the time difference is also removed. So we are on the level of 0.2 in the standard deviation, robust standard deviation, and almost 0 on the level of a bias. So quite good improvement. And this is basically what this model is implemented inside for the new variable sea surface temperature depth. For the IST activities, so we identified, and we saw before, there were a lot of discussion on the reference data. So for now, we implemented and we are building big matchup database using all identified IST reference data sets, so PROMISE, IBP, SAMBA, and IceBridge. And also because of the cloud mask challenges, we implemented also the Calliope as a reference sensor, so for the cloud masking. So now initial validation was carried on before, 2 years ago, on the MDB for the covering 1 year of data, 2019. And now, together again with DMI, Metno, and Noveltis, we are in process of extending it to the time period from 2018 to 24, covering both hemispheres. So this is work in progress and should be completed fairly soon. For the level 3, just to note that we are also running on our VKR environment. We are processing and preparing level 3C for validation activities. So it's done both SST and IST. So it's available. You can ask for access if you want. We're also producing some images, but we will soon also prepare some more monitoring tools. So now a quick overview of the pre-operational processing. Currently, we are running on VKR, Copernicus VKR, collection 4 pre-operational from last April 2024. It's fairly quick, so basically nominally data available within 4 hours. We are doing some updates through time, so there is also a link to show the information and changes, and all data available through FTP. Soon we also have we are internally assessing now these new tools and monitoring. So this is now currently internally, but soon it will be open to project partners, and next year also more publicly to others. In summary, so first of all, to mention that we are continuously to provide a reference sea surface temperature time series from SLSTR, and all the changes that implemented, the users will be satisfied. So next planned operational implementation is in Q1 24, so in around January 26, sorry. And then full operational reprocessing is expected in summer into 2027, following also SLSTR level 1 reprocessing completed this year and next year. And yeah, with this I conclude, and happy to take any questions. And also to acknowledge our partners again. Thank you.
Excellent, just on time, Igor. Thanks for this update on this dear reference sensor. SLSTR in polar regions. We go to the next speaker before we take questions. So that's Tasha Snow from University of Maryland, NASA, who will talk to us about polar applications of a new Landsat sea surface temperature algorithm to the Amundsen Sea in the West Antarctica.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Yeah, sounds like it. Hi, my name's Tasha Snow, and I'm at University of Maryland and NASA Goddard. I'm going to talk to you a bit today about a Landsat sea surface temperature algorithm that we've built for West Antarctica. And before I get into that, I want to recognize all of my collaborators on this work, as well as our funders. And thank you so much to both Erica and Gris for providing an early career travel grant to make sure that I was able to make it here today. So today, what we'll talk about first is why do we care about sea surface temperatures around the ice sheets, especially Antarctica, and in using them for understanding glacier and ocean interactions. Then we'll get into the algorithm and some applications that are really exciting that we've started to work on. Just to give you a little bit of background, this is the Antarctic ice sheet. The blues and purples are relatively fast-moving ice at ice shelves where a lot of the mass loss happens around Antarctica. Even though you have some very large ones here, I want to point you to the western side here. This is West Antarctica. Some of these smaller ones are where 40% of Antarctica's mass loss is happening. So some of these smaller areas are really important. And this is the area that we focus on for the Landsat application to be able to better understand ice-ocean interactions there. The ocean system is such that we have winter water at the surface. It's cold and relatively fresh. And down below that, we have circumpolar deep water that is warm, relatively warm, and salty. And that deeper water mass below 300 meters is what causes most of the melt in Antarctica and something similar in Greenland. That water comes into the base of the ice shelf. It melts. That meltwater is relatively fresh and buoyant, so it rises to the surface, carving out the bottom side of the ice shelf as it does that. It can entrain, that plume can entrain warm water with it as it rises to the surface, so it's relatively warm, and then it can melt out sea ice. It has a thermal signature, so we can start to see that with remote sensing and thermal infrared. So I'm going to talk about some of these meltwater plume features later. Part of the reason, I don't really have to tell you guys this after all of these talks that we've already had, but a lot of the reason we want to use sea surface temperatures in Antarctica is we have such scarce field observations there. The red is where we have field observations, but you'll notice, especially around the continental shelf in Antarctica and the light blue, that those places are mostly not covered in red. And so we want to fill in gaps in our understanding of ocean temperature using thermal. And we've started to do some of this work. Elena Savage was a graduate student who worked with me. She recently graduated. She did this work with Landsat and MODIS on the left here, where in this area in wintertime, you can see that there's a slightly warmer area down at the bottom that is in Landsat sea surface temperatures. And this is one of those meltwater plumes that's only a few kilometers across. So we can detect that from thermal, and then by using seal-derived CTD data, we can see that those plumes are actually fairly homogeneous, slightly warmer water temperatures down to about 250 meters. So we can start to use thermal infrared for these sorts of applications, which is really exciting for small ocean features. We can also use it to better understand ocean circulation. This is looking actually in southeast Greenland. You see the continent along the top. In the middle is sea ice, and that's where you have the East Greenland coastal current, cold water right at the surface. And off the continental shelf is that warm water that's actually homogeneous throughout the water column and goes underneath the East Greenland coastal current towards the fjords that you can see kind of in this image. And if we use MODIS sea surface temperatures, we can actually see along a continental or along a trough along the continental shelf, we see a huge intrusion of warm water up along that. And this is a feature, this is an intrusion that we haven't really seen or documented before in Greenland, but it can bring a lot of heat towards the fjords in Greenland. And this feature happens actually after a cyclone passes along many of the troughs in southeast Greenland, and that happens during when downwelling shifts to upwelling, and that water shoots up along the trough. So these are really important features that will probably be bringing a lot of heat towards glaciers, but we really haven't used sea surface temperatures around the ice sheets. So some of the work we've been doing is how to apply sea surface temperatures in these regions. But this is MODIS sea surface temperatures, which has a nominal resolution of 1 kilometer. A lot of these fjords are only about 1 kilometer across. So if we want to study ice-ocean interactions in the fjords, we need to get at something smaller. And that's where Landsat comes in. So we produced a single channel sea surface temperature from Landsat 8. There's some stray light issues that cause differences between the band 10 and band 11 in Landsat. So we chose to use a single channel algorithm, and also that algorithm can be applied to Landsat 7 to take this back in time. We did this in an open cloud workflow to speed up our computations. So I'll get into that and some of the results from that as well. So digging into the algorithm, this is the retrieval that we used. We used ModTran to simulate the temperatures for this. We used ERA5 atmospheric profiles and sea surface temperature as input, and simulated most monthly coefficients for the retrieval. And then for the actual application on Landsat, we use near coincident MODIS water vapor values as input. And then we cross-calibrated using MODIS sea surface temperatures. And this is what the algorithm looks like. I'm not going to get into the specifics here, but if you want to look at this later, we can do that. If you want to pull me aside. The outputs, these are 2 examples of sea surface temperatures in color there along the map of the West Antarctic coastline in the Amundsen Sea. And 2 things I want to point out here. We have masked sea ice and clouds, but you'll notice, especially on this left image, you still have some cloudy features that are in the data. Obviously, Landsat still has some of these cloud issues or cloud masking issues. So we actually have a neural network that is working fairly well. We haven't applied here yet. That one of the postdocs working for me is working on. Another thing to note is there is some striping in here as well, so some improvements to Landsat thermal is still required. The boxes shown here are where we used the areas we use for sampling sites for cross-calibration, and each of those is in different colors. And we use an orthogonal distance regression between Landsat sea surface temperatures along the x-axis and MODIS sea surface temperatures along the right to find a very high fidelity cross-calibration between the 2, and the black is the total combined matchups that we had. So these look really nice. We also validated against Argo buoy data from IQUAM. And these are examples of the matchups we have. The red is where the Argo buoy is, and the Landsat data is around it. On the left-hand side, those are high-quality matchups where we didn't find much cloud or any issues with the data. And on the right-hand side, the top, you can see there's some cloudy features still in here. We removed that matchup. And then below that, there's hardly any data. So we likely have cloud contamination in that one as well, and removed that. Across 10 years, we had a whopping 12 matchups that we were able to get between Landsat and the Argo buoy data, and then 5 of those were poor quality. So with the 7 matchups that we had from that, we found a really nice agreement. We found a root mean square error of 0.15 degrees Celsius, but you can imagine we didn't sample the full range of variability, so that number would likely change with more data. And we're looking for more validation data for that. We also did a comparison to the Landsat surface temperature algorithm that is provided by the Landsat science team. And I'm not going to get into what we did here, but the sea surface temperature algorithm outperformed it by 30% and had much higher correlation with the MODIS sea surface temperatures that we used. On top of that, as I mentioned, this is all open in a cloud computing workflow. We did a comparison between what this workflow looked like when I produced it during my PhD when it was not optimized in comparison to now. And this is what it looked like in my PhD. You had to go in, search for the data manually, download it, because you didn't want to download every single image because they're so large. Then you had to unzip it. You saved every intermediate step because it was really time intensive to produce these sea surface temperatures and the classifications and things for them. So that took, weeks long process, if not longer, and 6 terabytes of data. And this is what it looks like now when we have a fully optimized workflow. It takes about 1 minute to produce each of the sea surface temperatures, and the only thing that we really need here are the right tools and data formats in place. So we have our code, we have the cloud computing platform or your local PC. The data format is a cloud optimized GeoTIFF, and we have a streamlined data access tool. And the thing I want to highlight here is that the most important part of this is the data format. So as you data producers are producing data, using outdated formats is really going to screw the people down the road and slow them down for decades to come. So if you can use more optimized data formats now, you're going to really save people a lot of time and make sea surface temperature science more efficient. So as we have streamlined this workflow, we have reduced the time for iteration, the time for solution, and therefore the impact of the work that we do. So now that we have sea surface temperatures, I'll get into the applications here. This is one of those sensible heat polynyas that I was mentioning where those plumes rise to the surface. This is visible imagery from Landsat. The ice shelf front is right there, and right where water comes out from underneath that in the plume, you can see that there's a hole in there. And we've taken thermal infrared measurements across that line there that I'm showing. And this is just what this all looks like in thermal. So taking data across this, just to orient you, in kind of 1D, we can see that the ice front is over here on the left in that figure, and then we go away from the ice front as we move across to the right. And we can do this for multiple transects. 2 of those are going to be influenced by the meltwater plume in polynya, and the one A, furthest to the left, is going to have very little impact from the meltwater plume. And we can produce a time series here. So the blues are when that polynya is there and active, and green is when sea ice breaks out later in summertime. And what I want to point out is in these blue lines, what we see is temperatures that are the warmest right next to the ice front, and then they cool as you go away. But when you get into the greens, the temperatures are actually closest to the ice front are coolest and increase as you go away from the ice front. And so there's very different temperature dynamics here. What this is suggesting to us is that we have this sensible heat pooling in meltwater coming to the surface when there's sea ice present. And then as soon as that ice leaves the area, it mixes up the water column, and the stratification prevents those meltwater plumes from rising to the surface. And this is actually what we see in ship data, where we actually haven't seen in summertime when the ship can get there when there is no sea ice. We don't see these meltwater plumes making it to the surface. They leave at depth. So we can start to tease this out using sea surface temperatures when we don't have a ship in the area. Another thing that's really exciting is that we can pair this data with things like altimetry data. So here, this is Surface Water and Ocean Topography Mission, SWOT. It measures topography of the ocean, so you can get velocities from that data. And I've plotted the contours from SWOT on top of Landsat's thermal data. And there's a lot of artifacts still in the SWOT data. I'm on the science team, and we're working to make those better around the ice sheets. But the data is incredible, and you can see that the contours from SWOT really match up with a gyre that we have in Landsat, that we can also see in Landsat thermal. SWOT takes measurements sub-weekly, sometimes multiple times a day in polar regions, because it has an orbit that turns around at 78 degrees north and south. So we get a ton of data, and we are going to be able to measure variability in surface circulation features sub-weekly timescales, where in some places we have 0 observations of these. We have no idea where these surface currents are, and we also have very little understanding of any of the variability. So this is some of the expectations we have for the applications of these sea surface temperature outputs from Landsat, and we have some other applications I can talk about later, but yeah, that is kind of where we're going with Landsat, and I'd like to thank everyone again, all of our funders, so we can take questions later.
So thank you, Tasha, for those very interesting details on the sea surface temperatures close to the ice. Now we go into the question session, and we open for questions from Tasha and Igor. First, Andy.
Thanks. Hi, Tasha. I guess that's the first time I've actually seen those profiles. Yeah, when it comes to the, why does it not turn over? I was wondering, is it not just simply that when the polynya is surrounded by sea ice, essentially the atmosphere is cold, so the water comes to the surface and it's quite warm, but it's then, as it's flowing away, it just cools down again because it's surrounded by this dry, cold atmosphere. And then once the sea ice is cleared out, it's no longer surrounded by a dry atmosphere that's cold, but more like a maritime atmosphere, and so it no longer has that strong cooling function.
So it's covered in sea ice in those areas. So, oh yeah. So the shipboard observations actually show us that those plumes are not rising to the surface. They're going at depth. They're leaving at depth. And so we were wondering why we see plumes while the sea ice is there, but not once the sea ice is broken up. So we do have field observations verifying that these plumes are not rising to the surface. And it is, likely mixing of the surface water column prevents these meltwater plumes from being buoyant enough to reach the surface once that sea ice is gone. And does that answer your question, or do I have more parts of that?
Well, it's really about it turning at the turnover thing. I was just wondering if it turns over simply because it's cooling as it moves away in the polynya.
Oh yeah, I mean it does
cold air.
Cool as it moves away and mixes with the rest of the water column. Yeah, maybe I should talk to you offline, but.
Thanks for a nice talk. Actually, I was that result that you showed with SWOT currents overlaid over that was quite interesting. So I was just wondering whether SWOT gives you the velocities directly.
Yeah, we can calculate the geostrophic currents from SWOT.
So, but the resolution that SWOT offers is 2 kilometers, right? So.
Yes, for the low resolution data, they actually have a 250 meter product in the low resolution data. And then now we have started capturing high resolution data from SWOT as well, which gets down to 100 meters, or you can actually get it to go lower than that, but their product is 100 meters.
So does the geostrophic approximation works at that scales? So that.
I am less familiar with some of those calculations.
Okay.
Yeah. We are also struggling with a mean sea surface that isn't super accurate in a geoid, but yeah, a lot of the work that we're doing shows promise in being able to do that, but
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's questions for other people too, not just me. I want to recognize.
Yeah, Peter Cornillon, University of Rhode Island. Have you thought of using the VIIRS imaging bands instead of the MODIS data, because they're 375 meter resolution? You get a heck of a lot of coverage there.
Yeah, we haven't used VIIRS yet, but that's definitely one of the next things that we'll be doing for them. Yeah.
So this hopefully quite an easy question. Was this just using Landsat 8, or did you also use Landsat 9? And if you did use Landsat 9, did you notice any difference in the quality of the data?
So I can't comment super well on the quality. I haven't used a lot of the Landsat 9 data, but we did validate for Landsat 9 data as well. So this algorithm does transfer to Landsat 9 really nicely. And we wouldn't expect much of a difference anyways, but yeah, it works well with.
Okay, thank you. One more question, if I may, as well. Was this just using daytime data, or use the nighttime Landsat data as well?
So the polar night data is some of the stuff I was showing earlier on in the talk. That's from polar night, so it was at nighttime. Most of the data I've shown is daytime. They've just started acquiring the nighttime data, which is going to be higher quality when the surface is not covered in sea ice, which is rare. But this is all, yeah, daytime data.
Okay, thank you.
So lots of questions to you, Tasha. There's also an online question about the quality scheme that removed half of your observations from Haifeng. What quality scheme did you apply for determining the 5 Argo satellite pairs are bad? Is the delta T above a certain threshold?
Okay, let me look at that really quickly. So the delta T was above, I believe it was 0.6 degrees Celsius, but it was also just visual. We could look and see that the data was likely contaminated when that delta T was high. So it was all manual.
Manual, okay, thank you. Oh, hand raised. Oh, yeah, okay. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, this is Jorge. Is it
Yeah,
okay
please.
to ask?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hi, this is Jorge from NASA JPL. Just a quick question. That was great talks. With respect to Landsat, how did you apply the cloud masking? You mentioned AI, but then you said that was in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we just used the QA Pixel product from Landsat to do the masking that we've done so far. And then we have a postdoc at Stanford who's built a custom machine learning algorithm using it's a neural network for doing the cloud masking. And that has been performing really well, but that was not applied in this work that I showed today.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks. Now, remembering that Igor also gave a presentation, I have a question for Igor. Was something done? Gary told me that they were going to relax that dual nadir test for the kind of most recent version for the day 2. Did that happen, or has that not happened?
For Bayesian, you mean?
Well, basically things were getting bumped down into quality level 4 if they failed essentially the aerosol dynamic indicator, effectively the dual nadir, and that was going to be relaxed. Or
yes, so we are putting it now in the quality 4, but for the quality 5, it's still the same. Basically, what we are still fine tuning is some thresholds, because for the nadir, in the nadir we have the separate. We have the
the 3-channel one
cloud masking that is fairly new, so we are still fine tuning. But we have separate dual and nadir. We don't have the combined dual and nadir. So this
but in the dual product, are you still applying the same threshold to bump things down from quality?
Now we are fine tuning also this.
You're fine tuning it, still in process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris Merchant, I also have a question for Igor. I noticed that you are putting uncertainty components into the products in future. What do you expect users will do with this?
That's a good question. We plan and we suggest for users to use it instead of quality levels. That should be more kind of scientific approach, because different now teams and producers has different approach for the producing quality levels, but with uncertainty estimates, it should be more standardized, let's say, basically more tuned to the specific instrument.
I can follow up. You can do that with just the total uncertainty. The users could do that, but you're putting the components in as well. And I wonder what was in your decision for that.
Well, we also wanted to have the split between impacts of, or let's say, different components. So if it's systematic, to understand what is the level of systematic uncertainty, and if it's especially for the depth adjustment. So this is modeling part. So to have the separate components so the user can decide. Of course, we also put total, so to have kind of full overview, but to have more a split between.
Okay, so thanks for all the questions, and again, thanks for the speakers. We big applause. Now we have before lunch a short discussion on GHRSST priorities, and then we're talking about GHRSST priorities on polar temperatures and priorities coming out of the presentations given this morning. So, anyone who would like to say something about where they think we should go with GHRSST on this? We have here some. Oh yeah, thank you, Chris. Please open the show.
Thank you. It's not exactly, well, it's something I think is important for GHRSST. We've seen lots of presentations where we have, for example, the ice surface radiometric temperature, or maybe it's the microwave ice flow interface temperature, the surface air temperature just above the ice and the relationships to that. We have the same in the ocean, a couple of different types of temperature in the ocean, but also the air temperatures of interest. For example, in assessing climate change, the IPCC is very keen to have a whole ocean temperature, not just SST for the bits that are water and so on. So there's lots of reasons why, as a community, we're interested in different sorts of surface temperature. So I'm getting to the point, don't worry. Now, GCOS is reorganizing its list of variables that are looked at for essential climate variables. And this sounds a bit arcane, but programs do get structured around the GCOS formulation of these things. So it can make a difference to how programs are organized in future. I think it's very important for us, but also for the land surface temperature community, to be able to do projects that are across these different types of surface temperature, to interrelate them, to see how they work together, to build the models that relates these different types of surface temperature. And we've done a lot of that over the years in GHRSST, and it's going to continue to be even more important now we're also doing the ice as well as the sea. The current GCOS proposal, as I understand it, puts air temperature in atmosphere, sea surface temperature in the oceans, lake surface temperature in lakes, ice surface temperature in the cryosphere. And if it's organized like that, programmatically, it becomes harder for us to do projects that cross all these different types of surface temperature. This is out for consultation. It's the consultation. You can search. I think the word they're using is rationalization. So search GCOS ECV rationalization, and you can make a comment on this. I will be doing that, and I will be commenting that I think we need to have surface temperature together as a particular thing that cuts across all these different domains, because it's so surface temperature. It's everywhere in NWPM climate and oceanography, and it needs to be dealt together with, in my view. So if you have a view on that topic, I would encourage going to do something on that consultation.
Thank you, Chris. A very good comment. That okay, yeah, please go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I think based on these presentations, yeah, the focus on obviously high resolution, the coastal, and also obviously the polar regions, and going back to the comments that have been made and Chris is making. I think one of the challenges we face is especially also with the GDS specifications, is better defining the uncertainties in these products, especially as we go, for example, into areas like the coast and the polar regions. Cloud masking is a huge issue, in coastal regions. And one of the things I think, if we could somehow specify the differences in uncertainty between the clouds and other issues, I think that would also be a major step, forward in the application of, GRIS data sets. Yeah, and also I think one of the priorities, and Ed mentioned this, is we have 100 different GHRSST data sets now, and I think we need to go. I know I've stated this. I'm sorry, so many, but users still ask the question, which data set do I use? Somebody asked me that the other day, with respect to the Arctic. And I really didn't know how to answer it. And they showed me one graph. I don't know where they got it, but all of the, differences between the SST data sets and the Arctic. I really didn't know how to answer that question. So I think that's another priority, in terms of the future as we get into, and also, I mean, the air-sea interaction at Christmas, also as we get into these specific issues. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Good comment. Anyone else? Yeah, John?
Can I just add to Jorge's comment effectively that from my point of view, if you have 100 data sets, but the uncertainties for all of the data sets are calculated correctly, it becomes a lot easier to work out which data set you want to use if the uncertainties are done correctly. So I think Jorge's point about uncertainties is something that really should be concentrated on, because if you really did have proper uncertainties, it would make it so much easier to choose which data set you want to use.
Yes, that goes to all you SST producers. And first, Peter.
Yeah, Peter Cornellan from the University of Rhode Island. One of the things that I've struggled with over the years is to actually use the data. Often, and as I'll talk about in my presentation on Thursday, the data are broken up into granules globally, and so especially for level 2. So one that you have to stick all the granules together if you want to use large chunks, and that can become incredibly more tedious than it seems. At least it has been for me for MODIS, R19 version of MODIS. I spent 2 years trying to figure out how to do it. Sounds like it should be easy, but there are problems with the metadata that make it really hard to do. So something about the usability of the data that maybe we aren't addressing. And part of the problem, I think, is that in the past, we are constrained by our computer resources to look at relatively small regions, the 5-minute granules, for example, for MODIS. If you put the data into complete orbits, it makes it much easier to mess with them if you want large amounts of data for at least level 2 again.
Would it be fine if you had a better way to identify neighbor granules?
You just got blonked out. I didn't hear what you said.
Because full orbits are massive. Would it be better if you had would it help with your situation if you had a better way of identifying neighbor granules?
Well, they're massive, but you can subset out of them with a number of the different access methods. And we can handle the massive ones now. Relatively small computer, relatively small amount. A few petabytes is all we need. I'm kidding. Actually, with a few terabytes, you can deal with an awful lot of data. We didn't have those capabilities when we started setting all this up 10 years before.
So I think, yeah, that feeds into maybe GDS people. Yeah. Veronica, do you have a question?
Hi, thank you. To the comment about uncertainties, I'm thinking having them is one thing, communicating them to a variety of users with various levels of sophistication on the back, on the back end is a layer, yet another challenge. So we'd have to be, the more information we provide to make those decisions, the more creative we have to be in being able to explain it. And of course, there are sophisticated users who would dive into the data, explore the uncertainties, be able to answer the question for themselves. But a lot of the users we deal with in NOAA, it needs to be somewhat visual, somewhat quick, somewhat, for their own purpose. And how to do that is something we're thinking about a lot these days. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I could quickly comment on that in the context of the C3S data store, they have and are setting up an evaluation and quality control system where part of that quality control is there an uncertainty, and also some metrics about that uncertainty. So it's not as if you have to dive in, under that circumstance, it's not as if you have to dive into the data. You can come up with metrics. There's I can't remember what it's called, that John Bates came up with, the system matrix or something, where you get different colors and different things and tells you, yes, it's got this, yeah, it has this at this level, and you can have levels within it. So you can simplify yes, thank you, Andy. Product maturity matrix is the term. And so you can provide a gateway where a user can look and see approximately what is going on without having to go into the details. And when I say uncertainty, of course, from my point of view, ideally it would be complex uncertainties, but you can be rational about it and have simple metrics about uncertainties, and even simple uncertainty values. And I think, as I said earlier, yesterday, at level 1, currently we're talking about keeping it simple with a random and a systematic, rather than what you truly would want to do is a random and maybe n systematic components with different correlation length scales. So if you have some kind of quality control system set up, you can make it a lot easier for a user to look and see, is this the sort of thing that I want, because the numbers are about right for me, I think, rather than having to dive into the data. So maybe GHRSST should also think about having that kind of quality control. And, I mean, we've talked about in the past, like the CDEF thing, which we're still slowly working on, to provide the ability to look at a data set and know approximately what its fitness for purpose for climate may be. That's a similar question to just a general user coming along saying, which data set should I use? But you do need that extra layer, but there are processes and there are systems set up in other domains that are looking into that, which could be leveraged off.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. Is there a comment back from you, Veronica, or is it that?
I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, along those lines, by all means. And I was also thinking having a visual way to map the uncertain, like is the data product good for my region, kind of thing, or that could help too. But it sounds like it sounds like you're already doing what I've kind of had in the back of my head, but you put actual thought and effort into it, and we haven't gotten there quite yet. So that's great to know. Thanks.
I would just follow on the Peter's comment. On our side, on EUMETSAT, so for the new collection, but for the new collection, non-time critical products will use granules. So before we had orbits, and based on the following the user request, we are now splitting in the granules. So basically, we have all the products in the 3 mini granules, both for NRT and NTC. But I would like to stress that we should basically think differently, and all the data should be put in cloud, and then it should be more or less transparent for the users how to access data, because we should move away from downloading the data and processing. So to have the formats that basically allow direct access, and then from your point would be dependent on whether you have one granule, one region. So we are going, I think, in this direction. Just this matter of also changing a little bit mindset, start using directly from the cloud. But again, we need to also adapt the format. So this, I think, the previous comment on whether we use STAR or COG, Jean-François already mentioned, raised, I think it's quite important. Whole community.
Thank you, Igor. I think we need to provide Peter with a tool that makes orbital files from granules. Okay, so anyone else? Simon?
Yeah, so it seems this morning, listening to all of the presentations, everyone is talking about clouds. They're either stopping us seeing the surface, or they're biasing our retrievals of sea or ice surface temperature. But I didn't get the impression that we have a good understanding of what the problems are with our cloud masks and how we can improve upon that, especially in the polar regions. So maybe one of the priorities for GHRSST in the context of high latitudes should be to better explore the cloud masks and try to prioritize where they need to be improved and how we can do that.
Yeah, good comment. And there is 2 tasks in the freshly started high latitude task team, both over sea and over ice, for look at quality of cloud mask. So that's at least it's on the list. But yeah, you really identified a big problem there, a big challenge.
Hollywood, University of South Carolina, you shouldn't confine yourself to high latitudes. All the coastal regions, especially the high productivity upwelling ones, have a really serious cloud problem. So the cloud problem is much more universal than high latitude. It ought to be perhaps separate.
Yes, I think we also have a working group on clouds. So there is a constant cloud focus, but no miracle cure yet. I think that concludes. Okay, one more from Andy.
I was just going to say the issue with the clouds in particular is wherever you've got something interesting going on in the ocean, it provides one of the things you can do with clouds is essentially you rely on the fact that the ocean's fairly uniform and clouds are kind of not, and so there are lots of tests that you can do that enable you to screen these things out in boring, benign areas in the middle of the ocean gyre. But when you get to somewhere interesting where you really want to know what's going on, unfortunately, that the complex background makes it harder. And because of this relentless pursuit of lowest possible RMS and minimum bias, the fact you have almost no validation data in these regions. We have very little validation data in the coastal regions. We have very, very little data high in the Arctic and so on. So we only lose a couple of % of points. And who cares about that when you've reduced your RMS by, a 20th of a degree or whatever it is by screening this interesting stuff out. So it is dealing with dynamic areas it's a kind of a chicken and egg. You want to be able to relax the constraints so you can see what's going on. It's you can tolerate less accurate information because that's better than no information at all. And it's one of those mindsets, and the fact that we still think of a binary mask, whereas things like the Bayesian cloud, they're probabilistic masks. So an end user, if they want to, they can back off that probability and start to see what's going on underneath, with the understanding that they may let a little bit of cloud through, but essentially that's kind of it requires a little bit of sophistication on the part of the user, and also a little bit of a getting away from that binary cloud mask mindset.
Thank you, Andy. And as Igor mentioned, the EUMETSAT are looking into going more to uncertainties and quality levels, and we must then make sure users get what they need still, and they know how to use the uncertainties to mask out data the correct way. So that's a challenge for user communication, which is one of the points on priorities. So we got that. Okay, so thanks for all contributions to this interesting morning session on polar temperatures. I think it's time for lunch now, Erica. And we resume at 1:05. Have a good lunch.